So here's our third part of the chemical building blocks of life. We've talked about carbohydrates, nucleic acids, and proteins. Carbohydrates, primary function, energy. Nucleic acids, genetic information, DNA, RNA, as well as ATP energy. And then proteins, whole list of functions. Enzyme, support, motion, transportation, regulation, etc. Our fourth group of macromolecules are the lipids. Now, the primary role of the lipid is to provide insulation, shock absorption, support, cell structures, cell membranes. It can also be used as energy. Carbohydrates give us about 4 kilocalories of energy per carbohydrate per gram. Proteins give us about the same. It's 1 gram of protein gives us 4 kilocalories of energy. When we look at lipids, they give us about 9 kilocalories of energy. So huge difference. So if you eat the same number of grams of carbs as you do lipids, lipids are going to give you a significantly greater amount of energy. So if you're in a survival situation where you have limited availability of food, get all the lipids you can because they give you a lot of energy. Reality is, very few of us in North America and Western civilizations have that issue. And if we eat too many lipids, that tends to provide way too many calories of energy that we don't use, thus leading to a lot of the health issues we see in American society today. Obesity, diabetes, major health issues in our society because of our imbalance of eating and overconsumption. Okay, so let's get into lipids. Lipids are hydrophobic in nature. Hydro meaning water, phobic means it's afraid of. They don't like water. They try to get away from water. They push it away, and they're insoluble. Now, the basic fundamental monomer of a lipid is the fatty acid, which we can see here. So these are all fatty acids. Carbon-hydrogen chains with some oxygens attached. Our body tends to store these lipids. If we don't use them, it'll store it in the form of a triglyceride. So 3 glycerol molecules, 3 fatty acids, push it together, and now you have a triglyceride. This is body fat. Not good, not healthy. We don't want a lot of this. If you consume lipids, body fat, that type of fat with bacon, things like that, then your body needs to break it down, chop it up, and hopefully process it and use it as a source of ATP, or making ATP and turning it into energy. But if it doesn't need it, it tends to store it. It stores excess energy in the form of lipids in the triglyceride form, and the body retains those in case it needs it at a later point. So when we look at lipids, the thing I want you guys to remember is which type of lipid should we use if we're going to use them. And we have to have lipids in our diet. That's the necessary part, a certain amount. The challenge is just moderating. So lipids tend to come in 2 forms. We've got our saturated and unsaturated. Saturated fats are considered the bad fats. This is our Crisco over here. This is our saturated fat molecule here. The unsaturated fats tend to be healthier. Here's our Crisco down here, but if you notice, it is liquid versus solid when we're at room temperature. Here's our molecular formula for the unsaturated. So the molecular formula is not much different. Unsaturated have some double bonds. Saturated are all single bonds. The unsaturated tends to be a lipid our body does not recognize. They tend to be plant-based. And when it goes into your body doesn't know what to do with it, it moves it out. The saturated, while they taste good, they tend to be animal-based. Sometimes they're vegetable, but they can also be animal-based fats. And those are the fats the body tends to recognize easier. And if it recognizes it, it tends to hold on to it easier. These are the types of fats that can lead to health issues over long periods of time. Now, the most important, if you're going to remember only one lipid, remember the phospholipid. This is what makes up every biological membrane of all living organisms. The phospholipid has a head up here that is hydrophilic. It likes water. And then it has this tail region here that is hydrophobic. It doesn't like water. The tail is made up of 2 fatty acids. The head is made up of glycerol, a phosphate, and then a choline group. So this wants to get away from water. This wants to get near water. We will revisit phospholipids when we get into cell membranes, but do not forget this lipid. Put the red star next to it, highlight it. This is an incredibly important lipid when we talk about cell membranes. So other things we'll see with lipids is that scientists have created fake lipids. We call them the artificial fats. One of the more common ones is olestra. Now, olestra is this fake fat, artificial fat, that is not recognized by the body. So if you take a potato and fry it in fat, you get a potato chip. Some are baked, but if they're fried in fat or oil, we get things like Doritos and Ruffles and Lay's and all these other chips. They're good, but they contain fat. So using an artificial fat, this olestra, to fry the chips, make them, as the label shows here, fat-free. Now the reasoning behind this is that your body will not recognize that fat. So if you eat the Wow chips, whether it's Doritos or Ruffles or Lay's or whatever brand, you're eating a chip that was made with a fake fat. Your body doesn't recognize it, and it gets rid of it. It expels it. So the concern is overconsumption, just like if you overconsume too much fiber, it can lead to some digestive issues. This is the back of that Dorito bag, the label. It contains olestra, and it may cause abdominal cramping, loose stools. It inhibits the absorption of vitamins and nutrients, because when you eat it, if you eat too much, it goes into your stomach, starts to break down, your digestive system doesn't recognize it, and it says, let's get this out of the body. We're done. We don't need it. We can't store it. We don't use it. Let's expel that as quickly as possible, and that is what can lead to some of those unpleasant side effects of olestra. Okay, so again, look back over the 4 groups of biomolecules: carbs, nucleic acids, proteins, lipids. The carbs, the proteins, and the lipids can all be used as energy, but the one you really want for energy are the carbs. Proteins we want to use for all sorts of other things before we use them as an energy source. That's not good. And the lipids, shock absorption, insulation, formation of cell membranes, that's what we really want lipids for, not energy. We don't want to store lipids if we can avoid it. We want a minimal amount, but not the amount that we tend to usually have in the American diet. Okay, so molecular molecules or molecules of life, it's all about food and how our body needs to bring this stuff in, digest it, break it down, and then rebuild it or use it for its intended purposes. So try to make sure you have a balanced diet when you guys are eating, you're getting all different food groups, and you're staying healthy.